Good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I hope everyone is having a wonderful Thursday evening. There's a lot to discuss again. It seems like every time we get a guest on to go live, something big drops. Last time, I think we signed Endo after missing out on Caicedo. And today, Mo Salah is now linked away from the club. And Mike joins us, literally just joined as the intro was playing. So, Mike, you couldn't have timed that any better.
Listen, right in the door, right at the end. So I made sure I was in on time, though, didn't I? So close.
You know what? I might have to make these streams a bit later because I was just speaking to Matthew off air, and he said as well that he's just got in. So we might have to look at that. But
It's one of
pleasure
those,
having
bro.
you on. Yeah, it's a pleasure having you on, Matthew, with us.
Yes, thank you very much for having me on, gents. It's nice to meet you both.
How you doing, brother?
Yeah.
Not too bad at all. Better now I'm in the house.
Yeah, absolutely. But guys, please make sure you smash the like button on entry. That is all we ask. It helps us more than you'll ever know. And we'll get straight into things in just a moment. I need to also shout out the podcast sponsor, which you guys know by now, but for any new listeners or potential Newcastle listeners, there is a discount code for your foot card down below in the description. TAT Pod, you get 15% off, and their new range of EAFC cards, which are a slightly different design, as you can see up there, are now available on the site. So you can get play art, you can design your own cards, you can even get yourself on there. Yeah, check out the site, guys. Just see what you think, and use TAT Pod at checkout for 15% off. Also, I need to announce that, again, thanks to your amazing support, channel members, memberships, and super chats are now available. Now, I said it last time, me and Mike aren't going to go out and buy a new pair of Jordans if we make any money from it. Any single penny we get from super chats or potential memberships will go straight back into the pod, getting special guests on, just improving what we do. So, thank you once again for showing your support. We've recently become a monetized channel, which is absolutely sensational. So, let's get into it. Matthew, talk to us, mate. Last time we spoke to, we've not actually spoken to a Newcastle, but let's say we have. The last time we would have spoken to a Newcastle fan, I think you were just up and coming. The Saudi investment had just come into your club. There's a bit of, I think, underwhelming feeling of what they've done on the transfer front. We fast forward to now, mate. You're in the Champions League and we're not. So first of all, has it sunk in yet that you're going to be playing in the Champions League next season?
To be honest, mate, I don't think it'll sink in until I'm stood in St. James's Park, or maybe stood at the Bernabeu. Who knows? Hearing that Champions League music, it won't sink in till then. Yeah, it's been an absolute. If the last time you spoke to a Newcastle fan was when the takeover just happened, it has exceeded any kind of what were minimal expectations from my side. It was a case of keep us up, please, when the Saudis first came in, and to now think that we are a team that goes places like Man City on Saturday and gives them a bit of a go and doesn't put every single man behind the ball. The fact we play in Champions League, the fact we got to our first cup final in 25 years. It's been an absolute roller coaster. And I know a lot of Newcastle fans' expectations are changing naturally. Some may be higher than others. For me, I'm still just enjoying every moment of the ride. Genuinely, I am.
Absolutely. It wasn't long ago where you went down and our own Rafa Benitez had to save the day, and I think just from then, really, the way you've progressed as a team is insane. We'll get in some comments before I bring Mike into it. Stefan says, "Afternoon, guys. How are you, my friend? I've never been this emotional during the transfer window before. I fully feel you on that one. Surely we not effing sell Salah without signing a replacement. Surely, even if we signed a replacement, absolutely not. Unless your name's Kylian Mbappe." There's no. All I'm seeing this transfer window is players getting linked with other clubs and leaving no news on incomings. That's what Michael says. And we will get into the transfer front for both clubs in just a little bit. But Mike, the elephant in the room, which I think we're just going to address straight away, because I think the people are here to hear the opinions on it, on our front, on Mo Salah potentially being, taken to Saudi Arabia.
Right. I mean,
have
listen,
you seen the news, first of all? Because I know you've just got in.
I've been reading it, but I want to make it very clear. I'm here to talk about Newcastle, right? So let's put the Salah stuff to one side. In my opinion, Salah being linked, it's just stuff for media speculation. We control.
We have to speak about it for a little
We
bit.
we do, and I'll feed into it for a minute because I've got a million and one questions for Mr. Black and White. But listen, I'll say this openly. I'll say this openly about Salah. I do apologize, mate. You just got to listen to a little bit of Liverpool propaganda.
You go for it. You go for it, mate.
Yeah, pay of admission, right? So Salah, for me, listen, they're apparently offering him a 3-year contract, just on double his wages for Liverpool. He's made it very clear that he wants to stay here. He signed a new contract last year. His agent came out 3 weeks ago and said he wasn't leaving. I imagine he came out at that point, not just because of a little bit of speculation, but probably because that was when the first offer was tabled in terms of, personal terms. I don't see him going anywhere. I really don't think there's need to panic. I think because now people get paid for Twitter engagement, there's been a massive uptick in ITKs and Fabrizio, who I respect Fabrizio a lot. He's a fantastic, individual in what he does. But at the end of the day, it's an engagement game, and I do feel like Newcastle and Liverpool fans are getting taken on the roller coaster when it comes to transfer speculation. Right? It is what it is.
In Fabrizio's defense, he has said that Mo Salah hasn't communicated that he wants to leave, and Liverpool don't view him as.
Yep. But he also was very smart, wasn't he? Because he also tweeted out, but he hasn't said no. And I've seen a bunch of people that I respect as well. Like I respect Josh LFC. I think he comes across like a great guy. But I've seen him pick up on that as well. I've seen you two have a little bit of a. I see all your little engagements, Ben. Everyone you talk to on the timeline, I read it. I never like a single tweet, but I see it, right? And I've seen that little engagement with Josh, and Josh said himself, like he was like, but he's not said no yet, And I think it's just we need to get the transfer window out of the way because whether it's good or bad come the end of it, I think it's just draining every Liverpool fan right now. I think Newcastle have had a very interesting transfer window. I'd love to talk about that in a moment. But Ben, I want to ask you, and then I'll actually ask you yourself, mate. From the inside, Ben, how do you feel about Salah potential transfer? And again, what I'll ask you as well, following from Ben, is what do you think of Liverpool's business from the outside looking in? And then we can move.
Yeah, I've made my stance very clear because I think the plain business that a section of the fans are doing, I don't agree with it. Everybody knows my thoughts on that. But I have said if Mo Salah leaves the club, I will donate £100 to it. That is how confident I am that Mo Salah is not leaving the club. So I think that pretty much sums up how I feel about it. Obviously, there's always, the interest in the Saudis and the money that they can give him is just insane. But I just don't think that money's going to go anywhere. I think he could come to a gentleman's agreement similar to Harry Kane with Tottenham. You stay for another 12 months next season. The next summer comes around, the door's open for you to do whatever you want. I think that's what's going to happen. Like you said, Rami did come out a few weeks ago and say he remains committed to the club, and they've not had discussions about him leaving. Of course, this seems like fresh interest. This isn't the one that was from before. Apparently, they've doubled what they were going to offer him before, which, money talks. And no matter how often and how much these players say that they're committed to Liverpool, they love the city, they love the club, eventually, inevitably, it's their job. Like, you know what I mean? It only comes once. But what I will say for Mo Salah is that money's not going to go anywhere. He could go there at 34, 35 and still make that money. So it remains to be seen what's going to happen. I do think it's too late. Maybe if this was at the start of the window and it gave us an extra 150 mil to rebuild the whole team, maybe they would have thought, actually, yeah, you know what? Maybe we can do that. But now with 8 days to go, there's not really a right winger that can come in and do what Mo Salah does for us. I just don't see it happening. But yeah, you're right, Mike. We do have a guest on the show. We are going to talk more about Newcastle, and that segues into your transfer window. And what I will say, Matthew, is I think when Newcastle were taken over by Saudi Arabia, everyone had like this thing like, oh, they're just gonna splash money. They're gonna sign all these £100 million players. But I'm actually quite impressed with how you've operated, and you've not done like what a Chelsea or United would do with this money. You've actually made some really smart purchases.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. And I think, of course, when all the talk of the wealth was brandished around when they first came in, which you were constantly getting, which was mind blowing. We were getting stats and charts put in our faces of our wealth compared to every other club in the world, and it was absolutely mind blowing. So naturally, yeah, we all thought, are we going to go for a Neymar? Are we going to go for an Mbappe? Which the they wouldn't have their heads turned by Newcastle, but we didn't know whether they were just going to go in and be like, very similar to what Man City did with Robinho. Yeah. That statement signing to bring in, which maybe wouldn't necessarily be the greatest player. He'd only be coming for one reason, and that would be money. But we did maybe think that's where we'd go. But what has been put in place from a strategic point of view, I personally think has been massively helped by Eddie Howe. I do. I think Eddie Howe does not want them sorts of characters in his dressing room. And I've just done a video today on Lewis Hall because, again, for me, to add to what I think has been a great transfer window, I think Lewis Hall is such a smart signing. Yeah. We were really lacking balance on that left-hand side. We've got Trippier supporting Almiron or whoever would be playing with him on the right. And then on the left, we're very restricted from an attacking point of view from Dan Burn and Matt Targett, who both sound enough defensively. Yeah. And I think Lewis Hall really, not only is he a player that can play now, he's a player for the future because he's so young. And it's just a great, in my opinion, it's a great bit of business. And we keep pulling those kind of signings out of the park where, yes, we've had the big ones. Isaac, that came out of nowhere. My mind was blown by that 63 million that was spent on him with a couple of days of the window left. We've had Bruno, which was quite a high-profile signing when he came in because he was coming from he was coming from a Champions League team and he was coming to a relegation threat in Newcastle at the time. Mm. We've had the big ones, but it's all the little ones around him. Like I think Livramento can play both wing backs, and Trippier's not getting any younger. All of the signings we make, and it's not just that he's good, let's get him. There's other teams sniffing around him, which is a very common theme in football today. I think it's more Eddie Howe has almost got like a board in his house that his wife's probably sick of, where he's marking off positions one by one. Like, we need a bit more balance there. We need more depth there, and we're not losing anyone because we're not the club to sell anymore. So. No. Yeah, I'm happy with this window. I've been happy with the last few. I know you said some Newcastle fans were maybe unhappy when they first came in that we were maybe bringing in Chris Wood, who you can look back on it wasn't the greatest of signings, but Chris Wood did a job at the time. Yeah, we were without a striker in Callum Wilson's hamstrings being made of cheese, and he came in and he didn't score many, but he led the line, and we had no one to do that at the time, and he played his part.
That sent Burnley down as well, didn't it? At the time. Yeah, exactly. So it was 4D chess, yeah.
I mean, what an investment that is. You paid 20 mil to relegate a team. I mean, cracking work, really. They're grateful for you long term, though. I'll tell you that. The football they're playing now. I do have a question for you. So I think, from my perspective, outside looking in, when you guys got the initial owners, I think I was in a similar. I was in the majority. I'll be very open and honest with you. I was in the majority. I seen that, and I got worried for the sense of I thought you were going to go. Do you remember QPR? Do you remember when QPR first got took over when they were in the Prem? And people can easily use Chelsea as the example now, but QPR were the example I had in mind, where they went and bought. It must have been 15 players in 12 months, right? It was 15 first-team players in 12 months, right? And I thought Newcastle were going to go that route. They were just going to go try and sign a bunch of players without any real game plan. And I've instantly been proven wrong by it. I think, to be honest, I think you guys have had the smartest transfer window out of any of the top 8 teams.
I agree.
And because you look at the players you signed, you've not gone for names that are going to make headlines in the sense, except for Tonali, which again, phenomenal signing.
Well, I got the list here. I'll just run it through. Sandro Tonali, 55 mil. Harvey Barnes, 38 mil. Tino Livramento, 33 mil. Young Kumbu Minter, 7 mil, and obviously Lewis Hall. Those valuations are from Transfer Market, so they obviously could be slightly off, but yeah. That's what they've done so far.
Yeah, so you look at that. You've got a fantastic midfielder in. I think you bringing in Lewis Hall and Livramento. You've just injected youth and energy in your fullback positions. Hall is a phenomenal acquisition as well. I think it appeases not only your long-term plan, but obviously he's a young player. He's a Newcastle fan, so it just ticks a lot of boxes. So from your side of things, we talk about are you surprised with it when you look at the team that you've assembled now. Do you look at this league and go, okay, we're underdogs this season. People aren't expecting us to retain Champions League. Do you expect yourself to retain Champions League with the signings? Is that the ambition?
I think our ownership, and it's become more highlighted by Amazon. I don't know whether you've watched Newcastle's first couple of episodes that have been released.
I haven't yet.
You're learning a bit more about them. Not so much, I don't necessarily think Mehrdad and Amanda, but I think Al Rumian, and I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, our chairman, who's not not over a new. Sorry if I'm up and down, by the way. It's because my dog can be a bit of a nightmare.
That's all right, mate. Don't worry about it. I've got a Labradoodle, mate. I know what it's like.
Yeah, I think if you would have asked me before the Aston Villa game, just before the season had started, I did all my predictions. I said I'd be happy with maybe 5th or 6th. I think we can cause a surprise in the Champions League, and I stand by that. I think as the 4th seeded team, a lot of teams will come to St James's Park and be very surprised at what they have to play.
I agree with that.
League, I do still think. I think we're going to be in there because this conversation would be very different 2 weeks ago because your brain is fogged a little bit by what you've seen in the opening 2 matches, if that makes sense. And like Man United, for example, they look all at 6s and 7s. They look like they're balancing their teams massively off so far. I thought Man United might have bedded in this year a little bit more under Ten Hag and had a better season, but it's only 2 matches. I do think we'll be in and around there. And I think what our biggest worry as fans coming into this season was squad depth with the extra fixtures. Now that's been flipped on its head a little bit through pre-season and through the signings we've had. If you look at our squad now, I'm not saying the players that would fill in for first teamers are of the quality of Champions League or top 4 or anything like that. But we do actually have almost 2 teams. And in pre-season, we played Villarreal and Fiorentina across 2 matches in 48 hours. We fielded 2 totally different teams and we smashed both teams comfortably.
You're missing a right centre-back though, aren't you? You're missing a right centre-back.
Yeah, I mean we've got Lascelles, who his quality's not there, and he's not on par with the others. But now that Hall's come in, Dan Burn, in my opinion, is quite a sturdy left-sided centre back. He's not going to trees up. But his versatility to be able to play left back and centre back, and to be totally honest with you, I think if you ask Dan Burn, he prefers playing either as part of a 3 or a back 4 centre back. He's only happy to see left back out because he's playing for his boyhood club and it's keeping him in the team. So yeah, I would say I think we'll be in and around there. That's probably not the answer you want. It probably makes me sound.
I don't mind it. I don't mind it. I don't know how Ben feels, but I don't mind it.
No, I think they'll be in the mix for top 4 again. I'm not sure if they'll, like Matthew says, the schedule could be a thing, especially if they get a tough Champions League group. Well, I guess any Champions League group is tough, but you know what I mean? Like if they got the group of death, for example, you can't really afford to rotate. Whereas if you get like 1 solid team and then 2 not so good ones, you might be qualified by the 4th game week, so then you can rotate. So I think there's a lot of factors into it. Obviously, cups, I'm sure they'd love to win a cup after getting a sense of it, of getting to Wembley again last season. I'm sure, doing that again and going a step further will be the dream and the icing on the cake for the owners so far. But I just want to go back to one signing you briefly mentioned, Matthew, and this player I've got stocks. I've tweeted about this guy for the last 3 years. I think it was. I tweeted about him for the first time, and I really wanted Liverpool to sign him when we needed a centre forward, and his name's Alexander Isak. I saw this guy when I think it was the Euros, to be fair, so probably 2 years ago. And immediately after watching him across 90 minutes, I saw what he can do. And it's just like, you know what? This guy, he might not be there yet because I know he obviously had he was at Dortmund and then it didn't really work out. He had a couple loan spells. But from what I saw in that competition alone, he was absolute dynamite. And I know people say you can't just go off an international tournament, but sometimes you can. And from what I saw on that day in those games where I watched him, I was like, this guy is a star in the making. And I'm not jealous because, I love Darwin Núñez as well. And I think that I still have faith in him to come good. But Alexander Isak is the problem. And just without jumping too far ahead, on Sunday, I think he's going to cause us a lot of problems.
He's class. He is. When he came in, I think a lot of Newcastle fans didn't know too much about him. I think it was a sign that took us by surprise. But the fact he was able to do what he was able to do when he got an injury for most of last season and he came back mid-season and suddenly started tearing trees out the ground. I mean, I'm sure you have both absolutely loved that mazy run that he did at Goodison Park when we smashed Everton.
Unbelievable.
And he's just, even his finish last week against Aston Villa for him to chip the keeper, I'm sure you both watched the highlights, in that high-pressure situation the way that he did. We haven't had that level of quality in a striking area for so long, but it's a big debate for Newcastle fans at the moment. Does Callum Wilson start? Does Isak start? For me, there's only one answer because Isak offers so much more than just a goal scorer like Callum Wilson.
Yeah.
He's done nothing wrong, but Isak can link up. He loves to drive at his man. And as much as it might sound to some people like a jokey comparison, I understand people who've compared him to Thierry Henry. Not saying he's going to be as good, but his playing style is quite similar.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah, even the way Isak can adapt that left-hand side like Thierry Henry did for large parts of his career before he moved over to a striker, there's so many similarities there with how they like to carry the ball. And it's long may it continue. I would love to say that Isak is our striker for the next, because he's so young, for the next 7-8 years, because he looks like he's just going to get better and better and better.
Yeah, I think the big factor for you as well is this season's going to be St. James's Park, right? So you talk about these individual players, and I will say I think Wilson wins you a game, Isak wins you a trophy. That's probably the difference between the two players, if that metaphor makes sense. That analogy rather makes sense. But I feel like St. James's Park, especially in Europe, is going to be a huge defining factor for you, because I think when that place gets rocking, I can only talk about what I know. I know when Anfield gets rocking, it's the 12th man, it wins you a game. I think St. James's Park is very similar in that sense. I had a friend of mine went to university in Newcastle. He went a couple of Newcastle games, bit of a fake fan, but he went a couple of Newcastle games. He's a Liverpool fan, but he was going Newcastle games because he's just like, it's local, isn't it? So he's trying his best to get tickets and get in. And he said the atmosphere there when you guys took the lead, it was unlike anything he'd witnessed apart from Anfield. And I think European nights, home games, if you get through the group stage, I'll say this now, right, Ben, you might want to cut this. This won't look good on me. I think if you get through the group stage, there's a very good chance that you look good to the quarters, like probably maybe past the quarters if you have a good chance. The only reason I say that is because I think at home, and I remember this with Spurs, when Spurs got in that Champions League for their first season, Gareth Bale carried them without a doubt. But their home form, how they were at home at White Hart Lane at the time, you just couldn't get near them. There was something about them. There's an atmosphere there because the fans were there. And I just feel like Newcastle might have that. I think the fans your fans will take you a long way this season. It's all about the players you invest in, but I think your fans are top class. So I'm kind of worried about you, if I'm honest. I'm a little bit worried about Newcastle. A little bit. I'll be fair.
I agree on the home games, and I think it's one of them. Although I want them to underestimate us at your peril, I would say to some of the Champions League managers, maybe the teams who might just see us as that fourth seeded team and be like, right, we'll go there a bit cautious, but we won't necessarily have to set up defensively, because the way we press, which again I know you guys can relate to because it's been a foundation of what Liverpool have done so well for the past 2 or 3 years. Our intensity when we are on it, the way Eddie Howe wants us to be, like Aston Villa. I mean, they maybe had a bit of an off day at St. James's a couple of weeks ago, but my God, we absolutely put them in a chokehold. They just couldn't. They couldn't pass the ball. They couldn't get out, and it was just attack after attack after attack. And if we can do that to some of the Champions League teams, I mean, I look at the guys that have gone through the knockout stages. I'm not going to jump the gun and say we can get there, but I'd be very, very surprised if this Newcastle team, firing on all cylinders with everybody fit, just goes out like some teams who get the Champions League for the first time in years, goes out with a whimper. I'd be very, very surprised.
Yeah, it's momentum.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're just going to get on into the season so far. I know that sounds ridiculous because we've played 2 games, but you briefly mentioned there how you absolutely battered Aston Villa. And let's not forget, Villa are a team that everyone's been talking about for top 6 finish, and Emery's come in and have spent a lot of money as well. And then the following week you go to Man City, and I think I'm right in saying you were pretty pleased with the performance, even though you narrowly lost. It seemed like the general consensus was that, you went toe-to-toe with them. There's no shame really going there and losing 1-0. I mean, we got battered last season 4-1. I was there. It was the worst away day of my life. So, yeah, talk to us, mate. Talk about the season so far, the first 2 games. What can we learn from it? What can we take from it? And ultimately, what are you going to bring from those games into Sunday?
Yeah, obviously very contrasted matches. I think I would have known that before the season even started. Aston Villa at home, yes, a difficult game, and lots of talk going into that of this is one of the teams that's going to be in and around you. They've spent well. It's a very difficult game, which I thought it was going to be, and I did not expect us to turn it on in the way that we did. Apologies if you can hear her in the background.
It's all right. It's creating an atmosphere.
Yeah, I'll talk to you while sorting it. And then Man City I went down to City. It was sort of a free hit almost. Sorry, Max. It was a free hit, and we did. We went toe to toe, and I mean, I kind of do like a written blog as well as YouTube, and I did in my written vlog. I said that the most pleasing thing about the Man City game for me was that we now have a team and a manager who allows us to go to the Etihad and not just enjoy the trip down, expecting us to put every man behind the ball and have a horrible 90 minutes, but actually have a go and stay quite, and play quite positive. And the Man City match for me just was a really positive reminder. If anyone was worried that our defensive work from last season would not carry into this season, that was the proof was there. It will be, because we were so organised, so disciplined. And if we had a bit more quality in the final third, if Almiron was maybe not the man on the ball in certain areas, if Callum Wilson didn't mess up what was a 3-on-1 at one point as we were attacking, and somehow the ball ended up backwards to the left, we might have got something. Man City had chances. They were the better team. They deserved to win. But all it looked to me was that's where we can get to. And I think, what have I learned from them 2 matches? We've still got the intensity at home. St. James's Park, as you were saying earlier, Mike, is hopefully going to continue to be an awful place for teams to come. And last season proved that. I mean, you guys got a win last year at St. James's, and I actually thought we played quite well.
Especially when we were down to 10,
Yeah, I thought we were. Yeah, I thought first 10 minutes we started with intensity, and I was a bit frustrated to come away from that with a defeat. But that's what I learned from the first game, that the intensity's there. I think Tonali is only going to get better and better for us. He looks a class act. He looks really, really versatile, covering every blade of grass. And then the Man City game taught me that we can mix things up a little bit and really switch onto that organised side, but we are just as strong defensively as what we were last year. Now we've added Lewis Hall into that mix, maybe to add a little bit more going forward from a defensive point of view. Yeah, I'm very optimistic after the first 2 matches. There was a bit of a meltdown from some quarters after the Man City game.
Inevitably.
I say meltdown, that's probably an exaggeration, but you might have heard about Bruno responding to a post on Twitter.
I've seen that, yeah.
I actually don't think the post that was questioned, the actual account that put it, said anything wrong. They were actually saying, is the criticism that people have been pushing out on Twitter justified? So I don't think that account deserved to get as battered as it did. But a couple of people are talking about individual performances. Bruno hasn't really been at the races for a while now. Almiron maybe not offering us the quality on the right-hand side that maybe we could do with. But generally speaking, yeah, I'm still full of beans, absolutely full of beans from the first 2 matches.
Mike, just before you go, mate, because I know you want to ask a question. Stefan says to you, Matthew, where can we access your written? Well, I'm assuming that means blogs.
I just, at the moment, I mean, I'm across all socials. I post lots of different types of content. It's on my Facebook page. I post the vlog. The blog, not vlog. Blog.
Perfect. Go on then, Mike. What you got to say, mate?
Just a quick one. So obviously, I know you said you're full of beans. Don't mean tempting them beans out by any means. But is there anything you're particularly worried about this season, other than, obviously you can talk about the fixtures. I mean, I understand that being a concern, but you look at the squad. You mentioned a couple of things there. Is there anything you look at and you go, I'm worried about this, or the fans in general are a little bit worried? I mean, Liverpool fans' worries are pretty obvious to you, I'm sure. But from a Newcastle side of things, what are you guys worried about going into this season?
My worry would certainly be, I think if we got an injury at centre-back, I know you were talking about it earlier where we maybe haven't strengthened this summer. If Sven Botman or Fabian Schär picks up an injury, we are very short there.
Yeah, he's crucial for you, isn't he, Botman? He's crucial.
Yeah. Apologies again, by the way. My dog is now chewing something she shouldn't be, which is very noisy, which I'm trying to get off there.
We love dogs on this channel. Stefan set up here, mate, don't we?
We can use that as a transition, Ben, if you'd like, moving on to
Honestly,
the game.
I know you're saying it's fine, but it will get annoying if it keeps happening. So
it's all good.
I've put her in a tracks there. Concerns, I think, a little bit a position that I wanted us to strengthen in the summer, which not that many Newcastle fans did necessarily, I don't think, is maybe a central attack and roaming midfielder to maybe bring us some more goals. Now, I know Barnes is going to do that. I think the proof's in the pudding with what he's done at a struggling Leicester team. He will offer us goals. But I'm still a little bit concerned because that's going to come from more of a wide area. Barnes isn't the sort of midfielder to roam into central areas. Tonali's going to bring something in that area because he's very versatile. He likes to cover every blade of grass and he does have quality. But I can totally see why Eddie Howe wanted James Maddison. And I've said that from day one. he turned heads from Newcastle fans as soon as it was confirmed that he wanted to go to Spurs. A lot of Newcastle supporters were saying he's not good enough anyway. I'm not bothered. That was very much just, putting your guard up as football fans do. I can totally see why Eddie Howe wanted him for 2 transfer windows, because that would be the sort of player that can fit in. And I know we play a system where he would have to bring one of our better players out, but just someone on the edge of that 18-yard box to make things happen and score goals as well. And I still think that's an area we're going to struggle with, is goals from midfield.
Yeah, just on the Maddison thing before I bring it back to Liverpool, Stefan does comment this, and I was going to ask you this as well. How serious was the Dominic Szoboszlai chat? Because we all saw that, from our end, it looked like Özcan knew we're going to go for him, but was it from what you read or what you saw? Was it like, did you bid for him? Was you considering getting him, or?
There's a couple of signings now that have caused debate in our supporters group on the regular on social media. And I kind of stand by the fact that there's nothing come out to suggest that we've ever made it. It was very much the case of Diaby. When Diaby signed for Aston Villa, a lot of Newcastle fans said, why have we not got him? There's nothing out there substantial enough from any media sources strong enough for us to believe that Eddie Howe wanted them players. Because Szoboszlai, yes, he might have had options, and I think it's fair to say that Liverpool would still be the most attractive option for a player from overseas. And I'm not going to be that fan who says otherwise. Maybe in a couple of years, Newcastle might be more appealing. The Champions League football might have worked in our favour a little bit with that, but Liverpool is still such a club of such prestige. But Diaby, if we'd have wanted Diaby a year ago when we were linked with him, we would have got him. I genuinely believe with the money and those are players. So on the topic of him, I don't know whether we ever wanted him. I think based off what I know about the player, and I don't watch much German football, and you guys will be able to tell me a little bit more about how he's done for you so far in the first 2 matches. I think he would have fit in nicely into the kind of player that I would have liked in our ranks, our squad. But whether we were actually ever in for him, Ben, I know that maybe doesn't answer your question.
No, it's fine.
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah. Listen, we're going to talk about Liverpool for a couple of minutes, mate. So you catch your breath. We've asked you a lot of stuff in the last 2 minutes. Yeah. Mike, Dom will come into conversation, I'm pretty sure, in a moment. But I know it seems a lifetime ago since we asked Matthew this question, which is great because we've had so many different conversations. But let's talk about our 2 first games, mate. We drew to Chelsea away from home, and we beat Bournemouth at home. And I think it's fair to say in both games, there were positives and negatives to take from it. But if you want to sort of take anything from those 2 games heading into this Newcastle game, what would be like the main factors for you in terms of positives and negatives?
I mean, Endo's the second coming of Roy Keane. Obviously, it's probably like no, I'm kidding. Please, no, that's sarcasm. I think the main thing I take from it is that our pressing's back. I think last season there was a lack of energy in the team, just all round, and I think that we lost our identity for a large part of the season. I think I can see Liverpool in these players in this team in the first 2 games. We're rough around the edges, to say the least. I stand by what I said earlier. In pre-season, this is the restart of a second phase in a way. This is a rebuild, a proper rebuild, and it's a shame that maybe the business hasn't reflected that thus far. I'm still hopeful, even though there we go. Yeah, even though it's not over just yet, and we'll be streaming on deadline day. Don't worry, me and Ben will be crying into the camera.
Last time that happened, we signed Arthur Mello, so
I can't wait.
Too much hope.
Yeah, Salah will go for 25 mil. We'll sign Anthony Gordon from Newcastle for 5 mil on loan.
Oh God, hope
what a moment, what a rebuild. No, it is. I think for me, it's the signings will look great. I think Szoboszlai, we'll come on to him properly in a minute. McAllister's look fantastic. Endo had a little cameo. He looks neat and tidy. We'll see how he gets on against Newcastle most likely. All the forward line look electric, all of them. Like, I think Jota had a bit of an iffy game to begin with, but Jota does what Jota does. Jota's a poacher. He gets a goal where he needs to. But our concerns still remain the same. I think we are very susceptible to a counter-attack. Canate and Trent's positioning, I'm still not sold on. Yeah, I think it can work. I think it still needs a lot of work, but it can work. And we need a 6. So it's what we were talking about last year in a lot of different ways. But there's a lot of positives and a lot of negatives at the same time. So I'm not going crazy like Twitter is, but I'm still somewhat sane. But how are you feeling about the first 2 games, man? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I was at Stamford Bridge. Unfortunately, couldn't get to the last game because of this new stupid stand, and I could rant about that for hours. But I'm not going to do that for tonight's stream. But the Chelsea game, I was relatively happy with it in terms of the first half. At least I thought the first half we looked incredible. The goal we scored as well was a beautiful team goal. And again, that's something that we can take massive confidence in. That I know there's been a lot of conversation about, are we going to keep that identity that we had towards the back end of last season? And it looked like from the start of that Chelsea game, at least, that was going to be the case. But obviously, in the second half, Chelsea got back into it, and then it was sort of backs to the wall. And it was a bit disappointing to see it end up in that situation because we looked like the far better team in the first half. But the Bournemouth game comes, and again, that is sort of like a polar opposite. We started off really bad in that Bournemouth game, and then as the game got going, in fact, when we went down to 10 men, I think that's when we actually improved and started to actually play football. So it's interesting how that happens. People think like, oh, when you go down to 10 men, you'll just fold, but it actually doesn't usually happen like that. And I know we mentioned it about the Newcastle game when Pope got sent off last season. But yeah, like you say, there's positives to take. Just touching on Dom real quick, he's been an absolute savior. I know it sounds very silly to say, but to see a midfielder actually run his socks off for 90 minutes, I mean, that sounds like rocket science, but it's really not. Like, we didn't see that much last season at all. And Dom is just a physical beast. He's a monster. And I think that was something we all knew when we signed him. We saw the stats. We saw him batter the lactate test. And at the end, he said, oh, I could have carried on going. So the fitness levels and just the way that he can play that box-to-box role, I think is going to be crucial for us this season. But going to this Newcastle game, I am slightly more confident now than I was, when I saw the fixture at the start of the season. You see, you got Chelsea and Newcastle in the space of 3 games away from home because we went to Stamford Bridge and we got a point. And look, I'm not saying let's go and play for the point at Newcastle by any means, but if that is the result from those 2 away games, it's not the worst result. Like, look, I still think we're going to win. Okay, I'll always say that no matter what the situation is. If you don't think the team can win, what's the point? So
you're going to hate my take, then.
Yeah. But yeah, no, from the first 2 games, I think there is a lot of positives. Like you say, there's a bit of apprehension as well in some situations. But it is going to be a blockbuster game, I would imagine.
Yeah.
And I just want to move things on slightly. I'm actually going to I'm going to let you 2 do it. In fact, I'm not going to have an influence in this. But Matthew, let's do this, mate.
Oh, here we go.
You're picking the team to face Liverpool on Sunday. I'm sorry to put you on the spotlight, but are you happy with this formation, or is there going to be a change?
We would normally go. I think if we go 4-3-3.
4-3-3. Got you. There we are. Carl Darlow goal. Oh no, Karius in goal. Let's go.
Yep. Bring him back.
Is he still on your books?
Yeah, Karius is. Yeah.
Wow. Interesting. So obviously it's Pope in goal.
Pope in goal. To be honest, it's the team at the moment picks itself a little bit. I would maybe make one change personally, so we'll get to that in a second. So Burn at left back. I know there's obviously talk about Will Hall be thrown in. I wouldn't chuck him in this early. I think we'll have to be defensively pretty sound against Hughes, and although Dan Burn can be a little bit suspect against pace, he didn't do too badly last season. Obviously, Botman share centre backs.
I need to always click on this. So Botman, if you guys are watching on audio, I do apologize, but we are doing something that you require a screen for. So yeah, watch us on YouTube next time. Yeah.
And then Trips it right back. Good old Captain Trips. And then we would go Tonali, Bruno, and Joe Linton as that first 3.
Tonali, Joe Linton. Just on Joe Linton, is he available?
Yes.
Because I know, did he go off with a knock in the last game?
As far as I understand, it was nothing serious. I mean, he didn't have his best game at Man City, to be totally honest with you. He was a couple of our players, which is why I said there was a bit of a meltdown on social media about players' performances. Joe Linton gave the ball away quite a lot. Wasn't his best game for us because he's normally here, there, and everywhere. Front three, obviously Isak down the middle.
Isak.
I think the Gordon Barnes debate is a really tough one because Barnes knows where the goal is. But Gordon has started the season really, really positively for us after his Euro 21 campaign as well in the summer. And I think against Liverpool, it just adds a little bit more spice. So I would go Gordon on the left. And then I would actually go a lot of Almiron has a lot of fans at Newcastle. I've never been a huge Almiron fan in terms of the quality that he offers. I know he went through a purple patch last season when he was scoring goals in his sleep. I would go Jacob Murphy on the right-hand side.
Jacob Murphy.
Ooh.
Interesting.
I would.
Giving our fullbacks an easy day. I appreciate that.
Are you happy with these two centre mids? On do they have a specific side? And does Tonali play?
It's an interesting one. Tonali and Bruno are basically trying to build a relationship with each other down that right hand side where they switch it up. So Bruno and Tonali will switch that central position quite a lot.
Okay,
Joe Linton will be more to the left because Joe Linton likes to switch with the left winger, generally speaking, when we attack. So Joe Linton will be more left sided. I know Jacob Murphy might surprise you, and he's probably a player from the outset looking in. I totally get why you would go, oh God, Jacob Murphy. He finished the season for us really, really strong, and he didn't look too shabby in pre-season neither. And the way him and Almiron are very different. Obviously, Almiron has no right foot, but Jacob Murphy is just a little bit more direct, and he doesn't necessarily have that super quality that some of our other players under this Saudi regime do now. That extra level maybe for Champions League and whatnot. But he likes to get a shot off. He likes to get a ball into the box and he likes to run at his man.
I do think that's the next area you target in the window, though. As much as I think you need to sign the right centre-back, I do think your next big signing has to be a winger. It has to be the right side.
Because... Didn't let go of St. Mark's.
Well,
I agree.
Listen, I think, Murphy, I have a very small sample size of watching him. I can't comment on him and I won't be disrespectful in commenting on him. I think Almiron, like you said, he's a talented player, but I do think it was a purple patch. I really do. I don't think we're going to see that. And I don't think that's disrespectful to say.
And he wanted to call out Jack Grealish as well. Don't forget.
Also, yeah, I did kind of rate that Jack Grealish little feud he had. That was very entertaining. It was fun. But I do think that I'm surprised you haven't gone for it in this window. Maybe you're waiting out till January. Maybe you're waiting until next summer.
Maybe they're going to sign Mo Salah.
Maybe you'll try and sign Mo Salah. I tell you what, I'd come to Newcastle myself if you did that. And, no, I'm kidding. Obviously, I'm joking. But what do you think of your lineup then? Do you think that's how quality do you think that is? Do you think that's strong enough to beat Liverpool?
I do. I'm looking again. Two very different performances we've seen from this team, which is mainly that team, apart from that right-hand sided midfield change that I've brought in because Almiron started our first two matches. I do think Eddie Howe will go with Almiron, so I've got to think about it that way in terms of what I think will actually beat Liverpool on Sunday. If we can be as clinical as we were against Aston Villa, where we still missed a hatful of chances, I think that could be a big difference in whether we win or whether we get even a positive draw. Because Liverpool are going to have chances. You guys are going to have chances. There's no denying that at all. Dan Burn could potentially have a terror time down that left-hand side against Mo Salah. If Mo Salah plays, of course. I'll assume that Mo Salah will play.
Yeah, he will.
I do think we certainly have enough in the tank. We've got that Man City performance has not stopped our momentum too much because I think Eddie Howe will have got across the message, as I tried to in the aftermath on my content, that there was a lot of positives to take from that. We went toe-to-toe with one of the best teams probably in Premier League history. And the best team in the world right now. So I still think we are coming into this with a spring in our step. And there's lots of players. I'm going to be so fascinated to see how Tonali does on Saturday.
Yep, it's a big test for him. It's a big test for him. And sorry, go right ahead, man.
No, it's all right. Yeah. Carry on.
Yeah, no, I think for me, Tonali, it's a cliche, isn't it? The game's won in midfield. I think you've got a very, very energetic midfield in Newcastle. I think Tonali, Bruno, and Joe Linton, if there's one thing those three have got between them is legs. I think all three of them as well can put a tackle in. Don't get me wrong, I don't think Joe Linton gets the ball when he puts a tackle in, but he'll put a tackle in. I love...
Yellow card specialist.
Isn't he just? Every time I watched Newcastle last season, I was like, you can tell he used to be a striker, can't you? You can tell. So some of them tackles, mate, you don't know where the ball is. But he's transformed under Eddie Howe, and I think he's certainly become a crucial player for you. And I do think, as I say, it is one of lost. I think it's about how Tonali handles whoever we play in the 9. I really do. If you can stop him dropping in, getting the ball, if it's Gakpo, if it's Jota, whoever we play there, even if it's Nunez, it's about stopping that. You stop that, and you stop a lot of our build-up play, I feel.
Well, Mike, speaking on that, it's your turn, mate. I'm putting you under the spot. Right. I don't think what we play or whatever it is we're trying to do is on here. So I think we're just gonna have to stick with the 4-3-3 for visual purposes, and then you can talk through whatever it's gonna be.
This is our defensive setup in a way, so there's nothing wrong with the 4-3-3. Listen, I think the team picks itself for the most part, so I don't buy into Robbo left back for us. Then you have Konate, Van Dijk, Konate. Now there is a bit of a debate going on within the social media frame about Trent, which I don't buy into.
No. There's no debate.
Ben, I'm gonna explain it, all right, because he may not have seen it. All right, Matthew, I don't think you've seen this.
Right, go on.
And listen, there's no disrespect, because at the end of the day, it's a football fan's opinion, and they're all valid until they're not.
It's straight up delusion. That's what it is.
Ben, I'm not doing this. I'll be respectful. All right. There is an opinion out there, basically, that maybe Joe Gomez should start ahead of Trent for defensive purposes. Now, when you say it like that, there is a understandable concept behind it. It still isn't something that I think is justified, because I think Trent is too influential a player to ever leave out. However, there is a small subsection of the fan base that currly have questioned whether Joe Gomez
very small. Very small.
It is still there. Look at me aggregating this.
Would I be right in thinking that they are probably the fans who are of the more old-fashioned mindset of a defender should defend first and foremost?
Yes, you are correct. Now, the midfield 3, thankfully, with the rescinded red card of McAllister, which I hope sends absolute, hope that makes sense. Fear. I like McAllister there. I'd like Endo in the 6, and I'd like Szoboszlai on the right-hand side of midfield.
If Endo's on the
on the left-hand side. He is fantastic.
They didn't mess about, did they?
They do not mess about with their updates. Now, I do think what will be interesting will be which side Szoboszlai plays on. I do think Szoboszlai will play on the right-hand side, and McAllister will play on the left, which, I do think that's how we'll play. I think Szoboszlai's getting a good connection with Salah on the right, which is lovely. Now, the front 3 is where there'll be a bit of debate. Salah is definitely on the right-hand side, unless, that £20 million move to, the Middle East goes through, but we'll see what happens. And this is where the debate is for Liverpool fans. Now, I personally, with Endo coming in the 6, I'd like to see Gakpo in the false 9 position. I think he plays it the best. And I think with Newcastle, we want to draw Tonali out of position, and you want to draw Botman out as well where possible. So you want to play that can drop deep and take the ball well. And I think Gakpo is perfect for that. Now, this may not go down well. I would like Jota there, not Diaz. The reason for it is because I think coming up against Trippier, he's a very good defender. Diaz may be able to dazzle a lot of players. I don't think he'll dazzle past Trippier. What I think Jota can do is his movement to go from looking uninterested to very interested in a split second, is moving off the ball second and on. And I think that is where you can beat Trippier on that side. Also against Fabian Schär, who personally I don't rate, but that's just my own personal opinion. Listen, it's just my personal opinion. It's also down to I've only seen a very small amount of him play. So I keep that in consideration. Watch him prove me wrong. Man of the match performance on Sunday incoming.
He does have a worldy strike in his locker, so
he does.
If he scores,
be careful how negatively you speak about him, because you might rattle one in from 30 yards.
If he does that, I'll block you on Twitter, mate. Don't worry about it.
No, I think the one player. Well, obviously not the one player, but what's amazing. I should have mentioned that earlier as well when you were talking about weaknesses. I think one way to play us that I'd be surprised if Jurgen Klopp doesn't know going into this game is certainly pace in that centre-back partnership. That is one thing. With talk about us maybe needing another centre-back, one thing we do not have in Botman or Shea, even though Botman is of a young age, is legs. And then if you take Dan Burn and Trippier, Trippier's not the fastest fullback, I think the way to play us is balls in behind and legs on the last man. And I think possibly. I know, like for example, like Jota, he's not the slowest of players. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think Gakpo's a super quick forward.
He's got acceleration. He's not fast, but he can
it's
off the
like,
mark.
do you know what it is?
Yards.
It's his long legs as well. Similar to
Right,
Isak's obviously quicker, but do you know how they just take like these super long strides? I think that's what it is. It's like deceivingly quick kind of thing.
Yeah. We rely with our centre backs, which was why they were so good last season. When playing pacey players, we rely on Botman just being able to see
That
the danger
instinct.
a couple of yards earlier. Yeah, and he makes up for his lack of pace. But between them, if the right balls are put in behind them, we don't have the legs to keep up with certain
You
players.
play quite a high line. I'm trying to remember this. I feel like I didn't see too high line against City, but do you guys play with a high line at home?
It can totally differ. It would definitely depend on opposition.
So you're quite flexible in that sense. You're not like us. We're very rigid with our highlight. You'll see us play a high line against you, which to be honest, I you look at your front three. I don't know Jacob Murphy very well, but I know that he's quite fast, and I definitely know Isaac is rapid, and that's something I am worried about because I think if you look at us on Sunday, you'll notice positionally, if we do play the inverted, which I expect us to, Canate takes up kind of this in-between role where the right back and right centre-back should be when we're in possession, right? And Trent comes into this sort of hole alongside the defensive midfielder. And what that leaves is this huge gap between our centre-halves, right? Which Alisson fills because he steps in. I think if you win the ball back off us when we're in the first phase of possession, or even if we're just around the centre of the pitch, I think we're in serious trouble. It takes one or two correct passes and Isaac will be in one-on-one, and that's worrying to me.
I mean, it's music. Sorry, I was just going to say, on the topic of the high press, I know it's a very different team that we face and compared to what we saw 2 weeks ago at St James's Park, but if there's one thing that if we are firing all cylinders that we prefer to play against, it's a high line. And Aston Villa, just for whatever reason, did not correct that high line 2 weeks ago. Like, even when they made substitutions during the game, they stuck with the same tactics at the back. And it was we were just picking them off.
It's risk and reward, isn't it, really, when you play Newcastle? You know what I mean? It's the same when you play Liverpool. You know, me and Ben can attest to that. I think Bournemouth are a good example. We're good in possession. We play a great press and we play a high line. Bournemouth took the risks. They pressed us early on. They got the ball back, but then also risk and reward. When they tried to press us a bit more in the second half, we cut through them. Yeah. So it kind of depends which type of Newcastle and which type of Liverpool turn up on Sunday, really, isn't it? A bit unpredictable this stage of the season.
Promises to be a good game, though, I think.
Always is.
Absolutely. And just my 2 cents on this, I would go with this. I'd go with 10 of these players, but I think somebody alluded to it. I would go Luis Diaz on the left. Yeah.
I understand that.
Just the way he started this season. Do you remember how he started last season before his injury? He was our best player. I'm not saying he's been our best player this season, but he scored 2 and 2 so far. And I think that was always the debate with Diaz. Like, he's got the flair, he's got the tricks, he's fun to watch. But when push comes to shove, has he got that end product? And so far, he's got 2 and 2. He had a really good preseason. I just think, when you go in at these defenders, I would rather it be Luis Diaz. And like you say, I know Jota's goal is to just be a poacher and get those tap-ins, but at halftime, I was screaming for him to come off, mate. He was like, in his defense, he was sort of playing the Gakpo role, which isn't his game. Because we had to play Gakpo in midfield, he had to sort of play that role. So I would go with Luis Diaz here. I also wouldn't be against, and I want Gakpo to play up front as well, but I wouldn't be against Nunes coming in.
I love it. Yeah,
the ball that Trent played to him, I know Newcastle have improved since then, but last season was just a joke. And look, there was a debate whether he handballed it or not. I don't think he did, but Nunes can cause problems against the high line, and he is probably, apart from our quickest forward as well. So if we're looking at space behind a team that aren't blessed with pace, then I think you could go with Nunes. But I completely understand the Gakpo. And the other thing I just want to touch on before we close with some score predictions, because we're going to wrap up in a moment. Virgil van Dijk. Now, there's been a lot of chat whether he's back or not. I'm going to say I'll give him this game, right? Because I think I'm not just saying this because Matthew's on the pod. I think this is the toughest test of the season, and we've been to Chelsea away. I think this is the one where Virgil van Dijk comes out of this with flying colours. Then I'll say yes, Virgil van Dijk is back at his absolute best. I think he's been flawless in the first 2 games, but Virgil van Dijk has a level that, it's all well and good him having a couple good games, but Virgil van Dijk for 18 months to 2 years was consistently 10 out of 10 for us. And I have the highest standards for Virgil van Dijk. He started the season, like I said, flawlessly, and long may it continue. But if he does it at St. James's Park, Mike, then I'll sit here and say, yes, Virgil van Dijk is back to his absolute best.
I'll agree with that. I think for me, because he's got the armband, it sounds weird. I want to see him under pressure, and I want to see how he deals with it. Because I think what makes a great captain isn't, two good games. He didn't put a foot wrong, but I would also argue he wasn't put under immense pressure in Bournemouth. And, we kind of, the mistake for Bournemouth came from Trent, and, that's a whole thing. But I kind of want to see it. Like, I think if Isaac is constantly running in behind, which he will, Jacob Murphy running at him, you're going to have Joel Linton probably just like headbutting one player and then trying to shoot from 30 yards. Whatever he tries to do is however Van Dijk deals with that will be interesting. I think the one thing I've not seen from Van Dijk enough in this first couple of games, as you've seen with Bournemouth, is the leadership side of things. I don't think he was commanding enough for when we made the mistake originally. I don't think he spoke to Alisson or Trent correctly, or it didn't look like he did. Obviously, cameras only show so much, so I can't comment on that straight. But we'll see. We'll see if he puts in another 10 out of 10 performance. That's great. I'm personally not gonna say he's back until I've seen it for 10 games straight. But maybe I'm just a bit harsh on Van Dijk for some reason. I don't know.
Just very quickly, I'm I know you have been asking me questions. I'm curious. So, are you forgetting about this Salah business, which is going on right now, by the way, which I don't think he'll leave Liverpool? Are you happy with the transfer window or not?
Ben?
Not yet. No, I think we were sat here before the window saying that we needed a DM, even with Fabinho still at the club, and we needed at least 2 or 3 centre mids. Now, they started off, fair play to them. They got McAllister in for 35 mil. That was obviously a release clause. And then Dominic Szoboszlai comes in for 60 mil. Everyone's thinking, oh, you know what? We're actually doing something here now. But then obviously players go. And it's just like, I really want Endo to be a success. I'm not one of these guys that will label him Arfamelo 2.0 or anything like that before I've seen him play properly. And I think from what I've read and from what we saw briefly against Bournemouth, there is a player there. But, when you've put yourself in the shop window with an £110 million bid for Moises Caicedo, who, we all laughed at his debut for Chelsea, but let's be real. We know he's going to be a success for Chelsea. Like, come on. When you've done that and then you go from that to getting a £30 million, not 30, I think it's like £20 million guy from Stuttgart, it is a bit underwhelming. And I'll give them the next 9 days to see what they do. There's obviously been a lot of talk with Decore, but even if we get a DM, we still said we needed a centre-back as well. So now a lot of us fans are now accepting that DM could make up this window, but we also said we needed a centre-back, which doesn't look like it's going to be addressed this window. So my answer is probably no, but there's still time. And when there's time, there's still possibilities. So, yeah, Mike, what would you say to
that? Listen, I'm in agreement. I think, Szoboszlai, McAllister, very, very happy with. And I'm happy with the outgoings too. I think, a lot of people wanted an overhaul, and we certainly got one in terms of the outgoings. We got rid of a lot of players that have been very important to us over the years. We need another defensive midfielder. We need another centre-back. It's just as simple as that. And it's not even another midfielder in terms of an 8. We need a 6. Because although this lad, Endo, I hope he's great and I hope he's fantastic for us. And I hope he is here for a long time and he does, and he's successful. Of course, I hope that. But I don't feel like we've addressed the main issue still. So it's kind of, it is what it is. We need a young defensive midfielder that we can have for the next 6-7 years and develop them into the top of the game. You look at who we've been linked with and who we've tried to sign. I don't think Endo fit that description. So when Endo came in, for me, it felt like Endo was filling a different category. I don't feel like we've ticked that box yet. So in the same way you, in my opinion, need that right centre-back, we need that 6. So it's just a matter of wait. We'll see what happens. If we get a centre-back on top, obviously that'd be fantastic, but we'll see, I suppose. But from the outside looking in, does our business look okay? What does it look like from the outside?
Probably just okay. That is, like you were just saying. I think McAllister, after the hype that he's had, and you tell him he's looked really good since he's come in. Obviously, I know you got wrongly sent off as it was in the end. I think he's a good signing. I wouldn't be able to comment as I couldn't when he was linked with Newcastle on Szoboszlai, on what sort of player he is coming in. I didn't know enough about him. I hadn't watched enough of him. But yeah, probably just okay. I mean, I know you were saying you wanted to wrap up, Ben, so apologies if I'm chucking these questions.
No, so good.
I think because I would like to hope Newcastle are in and around Liverpool. I think Liverpool, for me, from the outset, is one of them clubs. I think Arsenal went through this for a while, where I was a bit unsure what their fans' expectations were, what their identity were going into seasons of, right, what do we actually realistically expect? Because obviously you've won the title recently, not too long ago. Is it just Champions League and maybe a cup run? Is it
no, Champions League and a cup? I think would be nothing to write home about. Say if it was Champions League and Europa League or Champions League and FA Cup, I think that's the bare minimum we'd expect at this stage. If it was just top four, then again, like I know Klopp always says it, that's our first priority. And look, we were winning titles, we were winning Champions League trophy, and Klopp still said it. The number one aim is to get top four. So, but from a fan's perspective, when you see all these players that we've got now that are sort of, I don't want to be too negative, but some of them may be coming away from their time here. Like obviously Salah, we know within the next 2 years, whether he goes this summer or not, he will be gone. Virgil van Dijk, probably the same with him. We need to win some more trophies whilst they're still here. And I think this is a good opportunity because we get back in the top four. And then, you'd probably say we're strong favourites right now for Europa League. I know teams will drop down, and knowing our look, Real Madrid will probably drop down to the Europa League this year, the 1 year that we're in it. But yeah, as it stands, we're probably firm favourites for that. I think in the last 2 years or so, we've sort of taken the domestic cups more seriously than we had before. And I think that is partly down to actually having a decent enough squad to do that now. I think when you look at Klopp's first few squads when he came in, people said, oh yeah, he's disrespecting the cups, but we just didn't have the players. Like the drop off from the first team players to the bench was astronomical. Now we've got young players like Harvey Elliott and Curtis Jones, Ben Doak, some more Stefan Bajcetic who's coming back. We've got the players that can be competitive. So yeah, I don't know what Mike thinks, but top four and a trophy, maybe 2 trophies, I don't know. But yeah, as long as we get top four for this season and look up the table, then win a trophy as well. I'm relatively okay with that for this sort of transitional period.
Yeah, I think I feel somewhat similar. If we sign a defensive midfielder, and to be honest, it doesn't need to be necessarily this world-class player that everyone wants or anything like that. Like I know we've been linked with Decore, and I'd love Decore as well. But if we just sign another midfielder that defensively is very, very good, then I personally, for me, similar to what Georgie said in the chat. For me, top 3 and Europa League is what I personally would like. Europa League completes the Klopp collection of every trophy, which is just a bit of an ego thing, I suppose, isn't it? But yeah, it is what it is. I suppose it's the second final we lost or something like that in his first half of the season. And it's the one trophy he's not won with us, so it would be nice to win that. I would say top 3 just because it's not that we don't have Europe this season, but I feel like we have enough to concentrate on the league more than other teams. I feel like Newcastle potentially can get distracted with Champions League, rightfully so. Arsenal, again, they've already picked up 1 or 2 injuries with Champions League as well, could get pulled a little bit thin. I don't think Arsenal are as strong as everyone has made them out to be this year. I don't. I think they're fantastic. I don't think they'll challenge for the title, but I just think they've got a little bit too much on their plate for that. And they have a lot of players they're trying to get rid of at the moment. They had 4 players training away from the team today, and I just don't think that mustn't create a good atmosphere in the dressing room. I don't think United are going
to. Who does that leave then? Who do you think, just on the back of that, who do you think will be challenging for the title then? Because I'm kind of looking, with you ruling out Arsenal to a degree, which I can understand what you're saying. You think, and Chelsea, if their new players don't hit the ground running, surely Liverpool then start to come into the conversation from that group of teams.
This is going to sound pretty rough, and maybe it's just because I'm quite tired. So I flip-flop. I might change my opinion by Sunday, But I feel like the current title race really doesn't look like it's going to be a title race. I think this could be quite a disappointing season for it. I think United don't look like they're a good side for me. Chelsea, I don't think will mesh in time. I think we're good, but we're not good enough. I think Newcastle are good, not good enough. Spurs are good, not good enough. And City is City. I think if City go and sign, they've signed Doku, and I think if they sign another midfielder as well, like they want to, there's just no getting near them. There just isn't.
That's true.
I watched them against you, and respectfully, I don't think they were in top gear by any means. I think everyone knew that watching. Newcastle played well, But watching that and thinking, City have won here 1-0, and I don't think they don't hit top. We all know this. They don't hit top performance till end of November, December time, and then suddenly they flick a switch, 15-game winning run. And I don't see any team in the league that looks like they can match that this season. So I think top 3. I think second I think second could be Arsenal. I just don't think they'll challenge City. I think City are going to push
the second, and then this second, like when we were getting second, we were getting like plus 90 points.
And then
I remember the 1 year United got second. Was it the COVID season? They were like 20 points behind, and like, we finished second. Yeah, but come on, you didn't really.
But it's a different type of second, really, isn't it? And not to say second gets you a trophy, but I can see City hitting 90 points this season. I can, and I can see us hitting high 70s. I can see pretty much every other team hitting high 70s, and I think it'll be interesting. The top 4 race will be really exciting this year. I think it'll be really, really exciting because 5th place might get Champions League as well. Correct? Because of the new rule that's came in. Am I wrong about that?
I'm not sure. I'd have to read up.
I'm pretty sure I read that today. That I can't remember what the rule is, so someone will have to explain it to me. But Matthew, you've heard of it as well, haven't you?
We were talking about this on the bus going down to Man City on Saturday.
You're talking about getting 5th, were you?
Hey, I'd be relatively happy with that, to be fair.
Rightfully so. But that's what I mean. It's like I feel like Champions League will be a great race this year. I think there'll be a couple of surprises. I think Brighton and Aston Villa will surprise a lot of people this year, as Brighton did last year. But no, I don't see it as an entire race. I don't see many people in entire race. But
listen, football is a funny thing, isn't it? And a transfer window plays a big part in the season, but it's not everything. Like, we've still got good players. You never know. Like, if we're lucky with injuries, which I know is ridiculous to think that with our club. We all know how the club is with injuries, but we'll see what happens. But I agree. I think City will walk away with it, to be honest. But let's wrap up then. Let's get some bold predictions. We'll go guest first. Matthew, putting you on the spot again. What is your prediction for Sunday? How's it going to go down, and what's the score going to be, and who's scoring the goals if there's going to be one?
Right. So it's not just a score prediction then.
Yeah,
I've got to squint and visualize how I think it's panning out. Of course, I'm going to back us. We at St James's. We've carried our form over from last season, where it was a fortress, into that first Villa game. I think it'll be a fantastic match. It'll be a very, very tough match. I'm going to go 2-1 Newcastle. I think we will start fast, and I think if there's a chance with those 2 goals, we could maybe go into a 1 or a 2 goal lead with that really fast start that might catch Liverpool off guard a little bit. And then I think Liverpool might ease back into the match, but we might just have a little bit with the substitutes and that squad depth that we now have a little bit more with your Barnes and your Wilsons to come off the bench. We might just have enough to get over the line. So I'm going to go first scorer, Mr. Isak, because he's been the topic of conversation on this call. So why would I not go him? And I'll go second goal. I'll go Gordon. Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be nice?
Someone put a comment that they're from Liverpool and the dad's at Everton. I can't find it, and it said that he's not missed on Merseyside. So
right,
yeah, that would be interesting if he was to score.
He's probably due one, because, like I say, he's looked really bright since he started the season for us. In pre-season, he looked really, really good in America against good opposition, obviously Chelsea, Villa, and Brighton. So I think he's only got the 1 goal for us on the last game of last season when it didn't really matter for much. He's probably due one, so I'll go Isak. And for you guys, I'll go, if I'm predicting all the goals, I'll go Jota, just because he's a bit of a poacher, isn't he? So I feel like he'll pinch one.
I'll get some vindication if he scores. I'll take that.
Go on, Mike. What's it going to be, mate?
I will be positive with the score prediction. I'm going to be very positive, actually. I'm going to say 3-0. Out of the blue. I know after everything I've just said, I'm now going to say we're going to be Newcastle 3-0. But I actually do believe that, because I had that conversation yesterday with a friend of mine. I think we're going to surprise people with the balance in our team with Endo. I think Endo's going to have a fantastic performance. And I'll put down Szoboszlai 1, Salah 2. And when we come back and, that you guys have won 2-1, just know I did actually put Matthew's bet on Bet365, so I'm still a winner. So it's still fun.
I tell you what, I really hope that isn't the scoreline, not because it would be awful to get beat 3-0 at home, but because social media and Twitter is changing a lot in the Newcastle world more recently. I would not log on to any social media if that was the score.
Matthew, can I give you a word of warning as someone who's watched Liverpool on Twitter go from, changing ownership, going from Dalglish to Rodgers to Klopp? The more successful your team gets, the more toxic the fan base gets, mate.
Absolutely.
Already noticing it.
It gets really bad, and you'll have people saying despicable things, and it's pretty awful, mate.
People just get spoiled, and let's not get into it. We could be a talk about it all day, but
go on then,
my
Ben.
one. Yeah, I saw it boring, but my one is exactly what Matthew said, but the opposite way round.
What the same format of how it goes as well?
We're gonna win 2-1. I think it'll be cagey game. I think for the first maybe 20-30 minutes we might be sort of feeling each other out, seeing how it goes, be a bit, not flat, but like not open. But I think the later the game goes on, I think we might just think, you know what, we need to start taking some chances now, and I think it might open up a bit. I'm predicting for you to score. Yeah, I agree. I think he's actually going to score against us. But for us, I'm going to say Mo Salah, and I'm going to say Darwin Núñez from the bench.
Oh, Darwin Núñez winner. Oh my God.
That's what I'm saying.
He didn't do too badly there last season, so...
No, absolutely, yeah, absolutely. But yeah, they're the predictions, guys. Let us know in the comments what yours are. And if you're watching this back, you can probably laugh at some of the predictions. But yeah, we're gonna leave it there, guys. I think we've had a great discussion. We covered a lot of stuff. Matthew's link is in the description, so if you guys just want to go and check him out, drop him a subscription. And yeah, I'm sure he'll drop a video when the game's done. Is that what you normally do, like a match reaction sort of thing?
Yeah, I do match vlogs, match previews, and then all the big talking points as the week goes on, which obviously it transfer season as well. There's obviously plenty to talk about, and then a lot of jokey content across other socials. So I'm a bit of a mixed bag, to be totally honest with you. A bit of a mixed bag.
Absolutely. And drop him a follow on Twitter as well. I believe that's your handle on the screen now.
Yes, yeah,
perfect. Yeah, and Mike, obviously, we'll be back. I won't be on the match reaction because I'm going. I'm blessed enough to have a ticket. So me and my brother are going up to Newcastle.
Bank on a Sunday, Newcastle away.
Mate,
that's got a
every
single box.
Yeah, it couldn't.
I'll tell you right now, Ben. Good luck if we don't get a win, or actually, better yet, if we win and you leave that stadium, go find Matthew. Go find him. Be in his match reaction in the background.
He's actually all right. He's all right.
Yeah, you'll need him as a bodyguard to get out of there.
No, you know what? I actually might do that, to be fair. Do a little match reaction if I can see it. But yeah, I went last season. I'm already starting to stretch my my legs because I'm going to need to make sure I'm in tip-top condition to get up those stairs in the away end.
Oh, definitely.
It was
definitely.
Absolutely.
Drop us a message on Sunday, Ben, because like I say, I do my match reactions with fans. It would be great to get you on and get your thoughts about the match.
Yeah, man. Let you know.
Oh, please.
But yeah, Vase of Flowers says, big up the Geordies in Europe. Give it a good shot, tune lads. There we go. I'm sure they will. Sorry, Mike, did you click one that you wanted to read?
Yeah, I was just bigging up Georgie's idea because I'd love that if that happened. Big up Georgie.
Yeah, absolutely. But guys, smash the like button if you haven't already. Subscribe to the channel. We're en route to 2.5k, and we'll see you on Sunday for the match reaction. Take care and goodbye for now.